we seem to have two groups that, number one, would not cooperate ahead of time. There seemed to be an appetite on both sides to have a conflict. And like I say, I would say that both sides were able to contribute to that. And when I say both sides, I'm not talking about, the homogenous group, because I would suggest to you that both groups are anything but homogenous. We've heard stories that the residents are out there, and these are all residents of the Beltline. That is not the information that I have. I certainly would agree that there's residents of the Beltline and maybe business owners participating due to their frustration, and that would be understandable. But there are also professional protesters out there as well. There are people out there who want to promote conflict here, and they would do anything to get their Kodak moment and to get their post. And that goes for the other side too. I would suggest to you that this was a damned if you do and damned if you don't no win for the police, because the bottom line is, if they ended up having to use any force against the one side, of course, we know how that turned out, right? They're targeting and they're supporting one side and not the other. If there was force used against the other side, which there has been in previous protests too, may I remind you, then we hear that our officers are Nazis and this type of thing, and this gets all over the right side, rebel media and freedom and that sort of thing. So, and that's okay. Nobody is suggesting that, the police shouldn't be subject to that sort of criticism. We all know how that works. But the reality of it is there was no winning on this one. And when you get two groups coming together like this who seem to be pitted on having conflict, there is going to be no win. I think it's demoralizing for our officers when you're going out there dealing in one of the most complicated legal environments that I have ever seen in 30 years. And I just think that it's been sort of oversimplified by individuals, some of them elected, some of them appointed. And does that fuel the fire? Sure. Do we have counselors that are encouraging people to go out and participate in the protests? Yes, we do. Do I think that's a good idea? No, I don't. At the end of the day, I don't control anybody else, so that's fine. But I can tell you, it's pretty difficult for city employees and police officers to be going out and then seeing themselves being criticized for what they're doing without even so much as a discussion about what's really happened and seeing the big picture. And it's polarizing. I get it. What isn't polarizing in society these days? Virtually everything. And so I just would urge everybody, I think, to be able to just take a step back. It's been a very difficult 2 years for everyone, and let's find a way to work together through this problem. And I think that's how we get there. The notion that we've got to point fingers and blame, we've seen it in other areas and it hasn't worked there, and I suspect it probably won't work here either. When we get two groups coming together that are very, very staunchly opposed to one another, and their beliefs and ideologies are completely divergent, in an environment where I think people are frustrated, people are tired, and their nerves are frayed, and we get it. We see it, all of us see it in our own communities, in our own families, and I would suggest that people are just not maybe bringing their best to every situation. And so this is volatile, absolutely. We saw it on Saturday. It was volatile Saturday, and we needed to open that road. And I guess that's what I think is that this is a time for all of us, I think with respect to the freedom folks, people who protested in the past always kind of considered themselves part of the larger community. So when we're dealing with protest organizers and we're asking, hey, would you look at this route because there's sensitivities over here that don't exist over here? We never experienced issues with that. And I think that's because people did see themselves as part of the larger community and actually didn't want to cause unnecessary negative impact for their neighbors. And I think that's what's missing here. At the end of the day, I understand why folks in the Beltline are pissed off. I get it. But it's interesting that when you talk to people that are coming out into the community, they don't seem to have the same level of, I guess, just respect for people that we would ordinarily have. And when I say things are polarizing, that's what I mean there. So that would be something to step back and just think about, what is the appropriate next step, not getting more positional and polarized. Certainly for residents of the Beltline, I again would just underscore, allow us to work this through. And I commit to you that we will do that, but it gets a lot more complicated and a lot more volatile when we have to manage a face-off. So I'd like to avoid that.